Good morning. It is WagerTalk's last call. I am Kelly Stewart, also known as Kelly in Vegas on all your social channels. Thank you guys for hanging out with us bright and early there on the West Coast, 11 a.m. here on the East Coast. We got Nick Borrman, Andrew McInnis, and Adam Trigger today. We're talking all things NHL, golf, soccer, and of course, MLB. If you guys have a question for one of our handicappers, please drop it in the chat and we will try to get to it. Again, appreciate you guys hanging out with us bright and early. Let's bring in Nick Borrman. Nick, we've got Copa America. Now, I was surprised to see that you wanted to talk Copa America this morning because we have the Euros going on. Last Saturday, we hit some nice tickets there with Carmine Bianco. This Saturday, I'm hoping we're going to hit some nice tickets here with you.
Yeah, everybody's excited about the Euro tournament, but listen, Copa America is just as big, at least for Team USA fans. So that's why I figured it would be a good conversation to have to talk a little hometown Team USA. I know a lot of people are hoping for this team to get better and better as the years go on, and they're proving that they are getting better. But one of their friendlies leading up to this tournament was a pretty embarrassing loss. So still a long way to go, but I figured it was a good topic to delve into today, a little Copa America, and that is the South American tournament. It's being played in the United States this year, so you can definitely go and watch these games. And if you haven't seen one of these international matches before, definitely check it out. It is awesome atmosphere, well worth the trip.
Yes, I can attest to that. I went to my first soccer game at Allegiant Stadium, USA-Mexico, and I bet the draw.
Awesome.
I had a great time. It was 0-0, no sweat on the under and the draw. That is my one caveat. It's great for some contrarian betting, but you like the total today. The United States is playing Bolivia. Is this the first round of Copa America?
Yeah, so it got kicked off on Thursday. Argentina opened the tournament. They won. Yeah, so this is the first round. It's just like the Euros. There's going to be three group stage matches before it goes into knockout rounds. So, yeah, this is first match for Team USA. And listen, what I'm looking at here, Kelly, is, on paper, there's no arguing Team USA is the better lineup. I mean, odds makers clearly show that. They have USA listed as over minus 500 money line favorites and minus 2 on the goal line. So big spread for a soccer match. And, it's hard to get down on USA trying to lay. You're not going to lay minus 500, obviously, in the money line. And laying 2 goals, I mean, it's hard to ask anybody, no matter how lopsided it may seem, to win by 3 goals or more. So the question here isn't really, how, if USA will win, it's kind of how to get, down on USA. And I think I have a pretty good angle here to do that. Listen, it's really a great first match for USA because Bolivia is the weakest team in the Common Bowl, and that's the South American Federation. And so they're the weakest team in South America. Perfect team for them to open up against. They rank 84th in the world. USA has climbed up to 11th actually right now in the FIFA World Rankings. And it's no secret that the Americans, USA, has been producing soccer talent at a much higher level here in recent years. And really, there's no better example of that than just looking at the roster on this competition. If you go back, 10 years, Team USA was, 80, 90% MLS players. And that's no knock on the MLS leagues, but we know, in the world of soccer, the best talent, the best players, the biggest clubs in the world are over in Europe. And now of the 26 players named to the Copa America roster this year, there's only 3 that are playing in the MLS. The rest are playing in Europe. And, they've become several big household names, and they're playing with big clubs. Obviously, Christian Pulisic with AC Milan's, the headliner. Weston McKennie on Juventus. Tim Way on Juventus. Gio Reyna, who was a great young player, was with Dortmund. Now he's with Nottingham Forest. So there's a lot of talent on this USA team. And, it's, again, you lay out the lineups compared to Bolivia, it's very lopsided as far as Team USA goes. But, the game's not played on paper. It's played on the field. And, Bolivia, I don't want to say they can be a tricky team, but if you take them for granted or you look past them, you could get caught. They warmed up before this tournament with 3 friendlies, 3 losses. Kind of expected for the team. They conceded 7 goals in the process. They only contributed 1 themselves. And if you go back to the World Cup qualifying this past fall, you're going to see very consistent results out of Bolivia. They lose a ton of games and they concede quite a bit of goals. The old 3-0 loss seems to be their favorite way to lose. Because of goal differential, Kelly, in this tournament, this is not an easy group to necessarily progress out of. USA isn't guaranteed to get out of this group. Uruguay is probably the favorite coming out of this group, even though USA might be ranked a little higher. Uruguay is a really, really good team. And Panama can be sneaky as well. So goal differential could come into play here, which just means USA shouldn't take their foot off the pedal with a 1-0 or 2-0 type of lead. Let's assume they have that lead. So I like the angle that USA is going to keep pushing. I like the angle that Bolivia's defense stinks. No matter what you're doing, they're just going to concede goals. So the way I'm looking here, Kelly, is if you get on USA to win the match and you parlay that with over 2.5 goals, we can bring that price down to minus 140. So we're looking for USA to win and over 2.5 goals. I think minus 140 is a fair price. 3-0 seems very likely. Listen, if Bolivia gets on the board, this thing is going to have a very, I think, easy way to cash. But USA could do all the damage themselves in this one, but I like USA to open with a win. Not a huge fan of laying the goal line or the money line spread, so I like this combo as a good way for their first match.
I would agree. We cannot lay the chalk here with the United States, but if you're looking for some action for the hometown team, this seems like the way to go. If you guys have a Copa America question, a Euro question, or a golf question for Nick, drop it in the chat. If you have a CFL question or a baseball question, you can drop those as well, and we'll get to them when Andrew or Adam come on. But really quickly, Nick, before we get into your golf play, can you please tell me what you have going on over at WagerTalk.com?
Yeah, of course. MLS, obviously Euros and Copa America, as we're talking about it right now, getting all the fanfare. But MLS is my bread and butter. Number one again this season, hitting 63% and up over 43 units. This is going for 6 straight winning seasons right now, Kelly. So off to a great start. We're about at the halfway point right now. Got a 3-pack going Saturday night in the MLS, and you can get 30 days of MLS action for just $99, or you can get 30 days of MLS and golf for $149. So good promos going on, both available right now at my page at WagerTalk.
All right, the Travelers Championship started on Thursday. It's been kind of an interesting round, a couple rounds of golf so far, but you have a play for us here at during round 3. Tees off 1:20 Eastern. So current lineup, as you guys can see right now, Tom Kim is just absolutely crushing kind of out of nowhere. I actually considered putting him in my Splash Sports lineup because, well, I was running out of players. Xander Schauffele, Scotty Scheffler without the E on our leaderboard here. And Batia, do I ever say that right? Andy Lang and I go over that a lot, where I screw up and butcher golfers' names. Talk to me about round 3 and who you like here this weekend, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a couple different ways to get down on round betting when it comes to golf. You can do matchups, and what's tough about all round plays is every book's different. Even between just FanDuel and DraftKings, they're going to offer different matchups. So you just got to really look around and find one that you like. If you see something, it's not going to be available every single spot. But what most books have been now doing is now they're, in addition to matchups, they're offering round scores. So just one golfer over or under a certain number on their round. And that's what I'm looking at here on Saturday. And again, yes, Kelly, this tees off at 1:20, so a little over 2 hours time. So get this one in here quickly if you like it. I'm looking at Tony Finau, under 67.5 in round 3. And par here at the Travelers this week is 70. So this is 3 under par. And I took this exact same bet on Friday. It cashed on the number. He shot exactly 67, so he beat it by the hook. I like it again Saturday. Even though I guess we'll say he eked it out as far as actually cashing the bet, he really played very, very well. And what I liked, he played very steady. He made 1 eagle, 1 birdie, 16 pars. The guy didn't make any bogeys. And I love that for a score, to go low. If you're going to go low, it starts with, I like to call it defensive golf. Don't make mistakes. Avoid the big numbers, avoid those bogeys, and then you can go low. If you're giving yourself that many opportunities, it was very easy to look back at his round and go, you know what, he could have been 4, 5, 6 under par because he had a couple other really good birdie looks that he just was unable to convert. So as long as he's giving himself that many chances pretty consistently and he's avoiding those bogeys, I love the score. Again, he ranks second this week in the field in strokes gained approach. So that means he's flushing his irons very, very well. So as long as he continues to do that, he's going to hit a lot of greens. He's going to give himself those birdie opportunities. And again, I think the floor for him, if he continues to hit his irons well, the floor every single hole is par. I just don't see him making maybe 1, but not many bogeys. Finau, the most interesting thing about Finau this week is normally his driver is very, very good. He's actually lost strokes off the tee so far for the first 2 rounds, which is rare. And if you look back at his results over the last year, he's lost strokes off the tee just 3 times in his last 22 events. So all that tells me is, he's due for a round where he just stripes driver, whether that's today, whether that's Sunday, or both. It's rare to see him over the course of 4 rounds lose strokes off the tee. So I feel like he's probably going to get his driver back in a groove over the weekend. If that happens on Saturday and he's still hitting his irons as well as he has been, and again, this guy ranks 3rd actually in strokes gained approach on the year. So it is no fluke that he ranks 2nd this week. So he gets his driver going and he keeps hitting those irons well. I don't think 67.5 is I think he could get down into 65, 64 and look at a 5, 6, 7 under round, because those rounds are out there in this tournament. If you look at some of the round scores, you're seeing 8 unders, as you mentioned with Tom Kim. You're seeing 7 unders, 6 unders. So the books opened all round 1 bets at 68.5 on most guys. I was quick to hit the unders on a lot of those because this tournament usually plays low. Everything's been pushed to 67 or 66.5 for round 2 and round 3. So I like it again here, Kelly. I think Tony's going to play well on Saturday, hoping to cash at least 3 under par with Finau in round 3.
Love that. I'll be looking for Tony under and maybe Tony in some matchups, depending on where you guys like to shop. All right, we have a question from Abby Jackson. Before we let Nick go, fan of the show. I love Abby. She used to come on The Hustle. She's always here on Saturdays. Thoughts on Portugal over 5.5 shots on goal versus Turkey this afternoon? Now, this one kicks off in about 45 minutes or so.
I don't know. Sometimes these over, because a shot is worth a lot as far as juice goes in soccer, because there's not, 4 to 5 is a big difference. So let's just assume it's minus 110 odds. I don't know if it's like minus 140 or minus 150 or something like that, but let's assume it's minus 110 odds. I think it's pretty good. You got to imagine Portugal's going to control possession over Turkey. That means they're going to force the issue. They're going to get in the defensive third more often than Turkey is. They're going to get behind that, that back line. So getting in the corners will help get shots on goals. You get those headers in, you get that kind of stuff. So 5.5, I don't think is a number you should avoid. I do like 5.5. I think you can get over that total here. Scoring the goals is another thing, but I like 5.5. And it's interesting. The closer the match is, meaning if Turkey and Portugal stay close, the more likely these shots go over, because Portugal is going to start to feel the heat and try to really put on the pressure, because these are games they should be winning, and if they're not, then they're going to be in trouble. So if this game's close, this thing should have no problem going over. The only worry is if they go up 2-0, 3-0 quickly, take their foot off the pedal a little bit, but I don't see that happen. So I like the over.
All right, Nick Borrman, one of my favorite guys for golf and of course soccer over at WagerTalk.com. Thank you for your contribution on this beautiful Saturday morning. Tony Finau under 6.5. Or 67.5, for round 3 in the Travelers. And then also the United States parlayed with the over 2.5 over Bolivia. So let's bring in Andrew McInnis because, well, even though I'm doing a countdown to football season, it's technically football season in Canada.
What's up, Kelly? Good to be here with you.
Andrew, always a pleasure. CFL, how's our season going so far?
Profitable through 2 weeks. We're always hard on ourselves. You always want to be better, but big play today. A big play. You got to hit the big ones. Hitting around 63% over the last 2 years on plays 4 and 5%, and on an 11-3 run right now with my 5% CFL plays, of course, dating back to last season. So hit a free play yesterday, which I was super excited about. It didn't end up making the client card, but I took the under on the highest total on the board. I had under 51.5, game landed on 50. When that stuff happens, it makes you feel good, because I know it might not have been the most smooth win, but a win's a win. And I felt happy about hitting that one.
Yeah, those are always nice when, especially late in the game, you're going, all right, can I just get one to go my way? So glad you got to catch the free play for the clients. All right, we're going to also talk some NHL. So if you have a CFL or NHL question for Andrew today, drop it in the chat and we will get that answered for you guys. But first, let's talk about your CFL play here, Andrew, before we get into Game 7. You want to talk about the Elks and the Agronauts and why you like the total.
Yeah, Kelly, I've been focusing a lot more on unders this season in the CFL. I notice a lot in this Canadian Football League. To start the season off, you pretty much see underdogs hit and unders hit. But we did see some overs hit earlier, and I'm going to take this over as well, over 49.5. Elks and Argos. A lot of things add up here in this matchup, one of them being the Argonauts off a bye week. And I get it. The season just started. People might think, well, why would a bye week really matter too much? Well, it's another week for them to get accustomed to their new quarterback. There was so much made about this Toronto Argos team, how they would fare without Chad Kelly. And Chad Kelly, of course, serving a 9-game suspension. Well, the Argos opened up against the BC Lions in week 1 as plus 7.5 underdogs. They ended up winning that game outright by 8 points. It goes to show that there was being way too much talked about with the quarterback situation, and Cameron Dukes is most certainly serviceable with the talent on this roster here for the Argos. And of course, you look at the Elks, a team that I think is not really going to win a lot more games than they did last year, but they're going to be involved in a lot more exciting games than they did last year. When I look at this offense, I really think it's improved. Over the offseason, they went and picked up a couple new receivers, a new running back, a new quarterback. McLeod Bethel-Thompson was playing in the USFL. He came back, and he's actually playing his former team in Toronto here this afternoon or this evening. So to me, when I look at this matchup, we've got an Edmonton team that's played Montreal, and they've played Saskatchewan. They gave up 29 points against Saskatchewan in week 1, and they gave up a ton of points against Montreal as well, but I'm not 100% concerned about how many they give up against Montreal, because Montreal is kind of a team that wins off defense, so they're great, but they're not really going to run the score up on you too much. And Toronto was involved in an absolute shootout against the BC Lions in week 1. I think that when you look at this Argonauts team from a totals perspective, if Chad Kelly was the quarterback for Toronto in this game tonight, we probably see a 51 or 52 as the total. And I think that more than any other league, we're seeing so many changes and so many overreactions to the number because of who the quarterback is. I think that one thing about Toronto in the offseason, they did lose a few defensive pieces, will make some games go over this season that compared to last year. They went under a lot. And this Edmonton team, they're just so sloppy. They're constantly making mistakes, but they have that kind of vibe to them, Kelly, where I feel like even if they're down 10, 20 points or they're up 10, 20 points, they're going to be that team that continues to strive, continues to try and score points through 4 quarters. And that's what you want with a total. So I'm going to go over 49.5, Edmonton and Toronto.
All right, we're going to take the over there tonight in Toronto. Andrew, we're going to talk about Game 7, but first I wanted to give a shout out to our production team. We are now on Rumble. WagerTalk TV, of course, is our name on that platform. We know, well, can't say why we're on Rumble, and I'm sure YouTube is going to censor us for doing so. But we're on Rumble now, guys, so if you prefer that platform, you can head over there and check out WagerTalk TV. Andrew, tell me what you got going on over at WagerTalk.com.
Kelly, a great promo code right now, 3-day, 39 a.m. That will get 3 days, all sports, all plays for just $39. And my 5% play is $35. So we're on an 11-3 CFL 5% run. That one play is $35 alone. I'm in action with MLB. We're in action with UFC. Hell, I cashed a WNBA player prop last night. All right. So if you want to join me on all my plays for $4 more, the promo code is right there in the bottom of the screen, 3-day, 39 a.m. to get 3 days, all access, all sports for $39.
So we mentioned football season is around the corner. That means Bet On It is going to be back. And so we asked our resident TNA expert, the stat daddy, Ralph, to help us out with this one. And Andrew, for Game 7, Oilers-Panthers, I can't believe it, coming down from that 3-0 deficit. Now, all these games have been flying over the total, but NFL Finals games since 2000, 6-1 to the under. We had one push there. I want to talk about this and why you're going against this trend.
I am, Kelly, and I think last night's probably a perfect example of it. For the most part, I've really fallen into the idea surrounding elimination games going under. I have. A lot of times what I've done is I maybe would take the third period over 1.5 because of the empty net goal factor. That's always been a play that I've liked to do. But on a large scale, elimination games in general have gone under. It feels like for the first 10 to 15 minutes of the first period, both teams are just scared to make a mistake. Nobody wants to turn the puck over. Everybody's getting across the middle of the ice, the red line, and dumping the puck deep. Nobody seems to even be trying to generate offense. You're almost just getting going, but that hasn't really been the case. And I know in handicapping, we're not supposed to have recency bias, but I feel like in this particular series, you kind of have to, because if people, you don't know how many people are saying every single game, well, Florida wanted to win the Stanley Cup at home, so they're going to win it in 5. Well, they had 2 bad games. They're going to win it in 6. What are those people saying now? And I think at this point, no matter who wins the game in Game 7 on Monday, I think we're going to see some goals here, because the Oilers have solved Bobrovsky, who was a goaltender that seemed like they could not solve. I'm not a huge analytical guy, but in Game 1, the expected goals were 5.82 for the Oilers. They scored 0 goals, Kelly. I mean, that stuff is just not sustainable for a goaltender, and we've certainly seen that over the last few games. So I get those trends. It makes a ton of sense. I appreciate Ralph for sending those and passing them along. And I'm curious because when you look at these two teams, Kelly, we're seeing a 5.5, right? And it's very similar in the NBA. I mean, you see teams that play in the middle of, let's say, January compared to a playoff matchup. The total is going to be like 20, 25 points less sometimes in an NBA game. Well, here, I can tell you what, if this was a regular season game between the Oilers and the Panthers, you would not see a 5.5 as the total. So things change come playoff time. So if this was a 6.5, yeah, sure, I'd look towards the under with you. To me, it's a great number to bet the under. But last night's a perfect example. I mean, the Florida Panthers didn't have that many opportunities. The Oilers didn't capitalize on power plays. And there were 2 empty net goals to win the game. So think about that way. I mean, the game was 3-1 at one point. All of a sudden, you snap your fingers, it's 5-1. The total goes over. If you had the under yesterday, you would have been absolutely punching the air because you just watched 2 goals go in an empty net. So a few reasons why I like that. And also, I think the power play is super important.
I would agree with you. Ralph talks about all the time on Bet On It that, hey, listen, these are trends and angles to support or maybe talk you off of a game, right? These are what did we see there? 7-game sample size, nothing too crazy, but yes, it has been towards the under. And guess what? I have leaned towards the under the last 2 games. And I've told buddies, like, I'm not touching it. Lou Permal says Oilers have all the momentum. He is correct. Boy, do they have, yes, last night's game was supposed to go on. That's what I said. I really thought here we'd see it, especially after that 9-goal game. Let's talk about the side really quick, Andrew. Do you have it up for sale at WagerTalk, or would you give us your opinion on it here on the show?
Well, Kelly, I was going to say one thing that chart would actually teach me, and I would use from that chart, would be the puck line. I talked about the empty net goal factor. We take a look at the chart here. 3-1, 3-0, 2-1, so the puck line wouldn't hit. 3-1, 2-1, 4-0, 4-1. So I believe if that's 7, 5-2 there to the puck line, and you're getting plus money on the puck line for both teams, especially if you like Edmonton, you're going to get some really nice plus money on that. So with everything being said, with talking about the side, looking at the total here, what I've elected to do, and I understand that some people might come after me for doing this because I'm turning a plus into a minus, which I usually hate doing, and I don't do in any other sport really. But I'm turning the Edmonton Oilers as a short dog into a short favorite here by taking their team total up and over 2.5 goals. Simple answer, Kelly. This isn't going to sound like the most, betting IQ thing to say. It's less stressful. It's less stressful. They don't have to win the game. They do not have to win the game to get me 3 goals. The last 3 games, they have scored at least 3 goals. Their offense has come to life. They've had a goal from the 4th line, a goal from the 3rd line. In yesterday's game, Connor McDavid didn't have 1 shot, didn't have 1 assist, no goals, and they scored 5 goals. If that doesn't tell you this Oilers team is different from years in the past, I don't know what does, because everybody thinks that McDavid carries this team and Draisaitl carries this team. Draisaitl has not scored 1 goal in this series. To me, that's crazy that they're in Game 7 and their second best player hasn't scored a goal all series. Only in hockey will you see that happen? And again, you talk about momentum. Is that word overthrown? Is that word overused? Well, I think they've certainly solved Bobrovsky. Whether or not Florida wins or not, because guess what? They still have an opportunity to win the Stanley Cup. They put themselves in a spot where as long as they went 3-1 in their next 4 games, or 1-3, they still would win. So they still could win the game, but I see goals, and I see the Oilers coming out and getting production from a full lineup, not just a few guys. So with that being said, I'm on the over 2.5 goals for the Edmonton Oilers. And Kelly, obviously, I think I am cheering for the Oilers, but this to me is the best bet to make for this Oilers team because it takes the winner completely out of the picture. I'm just taking them to reach the 3-goal mark, and then we're good.
Shocker, Adam Trigger is late to come on and talk MLB. We'll get him on here shortly. I'm kidding. He still has about 90 seconds. So that means we get 90 more seconds of Andrew McInnis. Andrew, any other opinions in the CFL? We actually might have had a question I skipped. Let me open back up the YouTube channel. Any takes on the Riders-Cats game tomorrow? Jerbaka wants to know.
Good question. Yeah. So, Kelly, this is something I've done a lot in the CFL, and more than any other league, really, you see home and homes in the CFL. There's only 9 teams in the league, right? So here we are, only in week 3, and you've got Saskatchewan and Hamilton playing a back-to-back against each other. They played in Hamilton last week. They're playing in Saskatchewan this week. This might sound so simple, and I don't do it in every example, but I kind of like taking the opposite of whatever happened in the first game in the second meeting. And a lot of it's because the market overreacting. It's because the public overreacting. And in general, especially with totals, you see a huge overreaction. Like I haven't seen one person on social media that likes the under in that game besides me. And for the second time, I'm taking the second highest total on the board, under. I mean, this is a game where you can get 50.5. You can get some 51s out there. Last week, there were 63 points in that game. A lot of the drives were extended by penalties, which I think is kind of variance that can certainly be cleaned up. Saskatchewan's coach talked about how they're 2-0. He feels like they're 0-2 because he's so mad about all the penalties they're taking. I also read a lot of quotes about the run game being really important for both teams in that one. So I expect more field goals, less 60, 70-yard huge plays from both teams. I think the under is a really good play. And one thing I wanted to mention, Kelly, before I sign off with you, because player props are a big thing that I do at WagerTalk.com, and CFL player props are available everywhere. When I first started doing CFL at WagerTalk, player props weren't really there with the CFL. But I got to say, pretty much, here's my tidbit for anybody with CFL player props right now. Bet the over on rushing yards for a running back that's facing the Edmonton Elks. That running back today is Kadeem Carey for the Toronto Argos. Kadeem Carey over 69.5 rushing yards. It seems to me that anybody that plays against the Elks is going to absolutely run all over them. The Elks' pass defense isn't bad, but their rush defense is abysmal. Walter Fletcher had one run last week for 70 yards. He would have cashed this prop on just one run. So that's one play to close things out for me, Cal.
Thank you to Andrew at McGinnis Picks on social channels. I haven't heard if Trig is here yet, so we are going to do a shameless plug because why not? Andrew mentioned shopping around. Always shop around on the WagerTalk.com/odds. Best free odds screen in the business. Adam Trigger is here. He's chirping in my ear already. All right, Adam. For some reason, some producer decided you needed 30 minutes to talk baseball. And that means I'm going to open up my Zillow page and just let you run.
First of all,
you guys missed last week. I was teasing Adam about finding my Anda house on Zillow while he was talking.
I heard the
and
whole,
now I'm going to talk over him.
heard the whole Blue Bombers breakdown just now. I've been chilling here for 5 minutes. I even heard something about some goals in a hockey game. Have no clue why we're still playing hockey on June 22nd. That's just my opinion there. But we have, we have a ton of Major League Baseball. It's June.
Okay.
Kel, we should be
You guys
talking about
have-
baseball. This is baseball.
We can talk about baseball, which is exactly why I said I'm going to do some online shopping, and I'm just going to let you have the floor. Shout out to Sean Alvarez. Shout out to B Daddy in the chat. Anybody else want to shout out before I just let Trig off the leash and talk about baseball for the next 30 minutes? Anybody have anything they want to say? Okay, great. All jokes aside, Trig, there's a lot of baseball. Kelly always beats up Adam. Yeah. CT burner account, Titan CT. We know him from the Hustle Show as well. Okay, Trig, look, let's see. I was told that you have, what baseball games were you supposed to put in the chat that I don't see? Oh boy, Trig did not follow directions. So I have no baseball games to talk about. I guess that means the show has to end.
What? No, what chat are you looking at? I put 2 plays in there. I may have put them in the wrong one, but Cal,
Quite
I'm ready to
possibly.
talk all 15. You can, I
All
think
15.
I did put them in the wrong chat.
Please,
No, I
somebody
put them in the
beg
chat.
for Trig not
They're in
to
there.
talk about all 15 baseball games. Okay, I'll
They're in
cruise
there.
line. There's a lot that goes on.
You got to scroll up a little bit.
Diamondbacks. Okay, there we
Yeah,
go.
there you go.
Diamondbacks over the Phillies. This one starts 4:05 Eastern. If you go to the Wager Talk on screen right now, you can definitely shop around on a couple of these money lines. But shocker, Trig, the 1.5. You always love the plus 1.5. I log into Wager Talk every day, see your plays. You've been absolutely on fire on the diamond. Please tell me why you like the plus 1.5 here with the D-backs.
So I did a video on this game yesterday on WagerTalk TV. It was up as a standalone video where I talked about Arizona being a live underdog, and that's the way I would bet that game. They ended up winning 5-4 in a rematch of last year's NLCS. So, of course, this is the same ballpark that they went in and won Game 6 and Game 7 to upset the Phillies and get to the World Series. And then they come right back to the scene of the crime in the first meeting since, and they win that game as an underdog. So the reason I bring up yesterday's game is because, I think that there's a lot of similarities between Jordan Montgomery, who pitched yesterday and gave the Phillies some trouble, and Tommy Henry, who's going to pitch tonight. Now, we'll start by going with. Sorry, I had my bad. I just tripped myself up. I was reading the wrong notes, but I got it all in my head. So, reason I want to look at this game: Jordan Montgomery last night, left-handed pitcher that has really good splits against left-handed batters. I thought that it would sort of mess up the Phillies' lineup construction a little bit, and it did just that. Their big bats from the left side: Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Bryson Stott, Marsh. Schwarber went 1 for 4. I think he had a base hit, no RBIs. Harper, the same thing. He had that double. Don't think he drove any runs in. And then Stott and Marsh weren't even in the lineup, and I believe they went a combined 0 for 3, in pinch hitting and then coming into the game. So, Montgomery was a guy putting a lot of guys on base. He didn't go into last night's start pitching particularly well, but he gave he hit the lefty, gave the Phillies trouble, and Tommy Henry's a lot like him. So I think you have some similarities there, and maybe Henry, a guy that the Phillies haven't seen at all, could have some success in this spot. Now, the difference between last night and today is I was way more confident in the Diamondbacks generating some offense last night against Tawan Walker, a guy that I don't really think belongs in a big league rotation right now. Certainly not a rotation like the Phillies. He's definitely one of the weaker links there. I think he showed that again last night. This is a big difference. Zach Wheeler has been one of the best pitchers in the league all year. Now, he did get roughed up yesterday, roughed up in his last start against the Orioles. 8 runs on 9 hits and just 4 1/3. So maybe he bounces back. But still, the Diamondbacks are hitting the ball. There's this narrative that they crush left-handed pitching, but they still hit right-handed pitching excellent. And with Jock Peterson in the platoon in there against right-handed pitching, he raised his OPS from 914 to 935, which I think is now top 3 in the NL with a 2 for 4 game and a home run last night. He's given them a massive boost against right-handed pitching. So what does all this mean here? Well, here you've got a similar pitching situation for the Diamondbacks. They're coming off of a win, but now instead of Tawan Walker, it's Zach Wheeler, a much better starting pitcher. Is it worth the run? Because that's essentially the trade-off. Yesterday we were talking about Diamondbacks, playing them as a plus 115 underdog. They won the game. Today, I'd be looking at the plus 1.5. But a couple reasons I like that, Kelly. One, I always like it with the road team when I can get it. Of course, you kind of get the extra at bat to get it done. The only way the Phillies are batting in the ninth inning, in the bottom of the ninth, is if they're tied or trailing, in which case I think even you, who doesn't like to bet baseball, would be like, you know what, give me plus 1.5 in that scenario. The other reason I like it, you're getting plus money. So very rarely do you get a quality team like the Diamondbacks plus 1.5 on the road and not have to lay juice to back it. Here you get plus 1.5, plus 105, entirely because Zach Wheeler's on the mound for the Phillies. I think Corbin Carroll's going to start to hit better. He's only hitting 215. You have to think his batting average starts to rise. If it does, that certainly helps against right-handed pitching. Diamondbacks are a good baseball team. They're now 13-6 in the month of June. They're one of the hottest teams in the league right now, and I continue to ride them. Diamondbacks plus 1.5 and plus money seems like a pretty solid move here.
I would like to clarify something. I never said I didn't like to bet baseball. I bet Dave Koken's baseball. I've been tailing Trig on this hot streak. So first of all, I have no qualms about betting baseball. I don't like to watch it on TV, and I don't like their bullpens, and I don't like personally handicapping it. So yes, I do bet baseball. Just
I know you're busy with lax lately.
Issues.
I know you're a big lacrosse girl.
We've been doing well with lacrosse. I'm sorry, you're a fucking hater. Oops, can't say that on YouTube. Make sure you guys go to WagerTalk TV on Rumble, where I'm allowed to drop F-bombs. Adam, do you know? Team Cat Whisper wants to know. Gurrell and Perdomo will be back. They both left yesterday's game with injuries.
I don't know. I'll have to see a lineup. And this brings me to, why I have nothing up on my page at this point. I like waiting on Saturdays and Sundays to bet baseball. It's just, you get rotated lineups. If guys are going to get days off, it's typically in these Saturday and Sunday day games. So I like to see a lineup. In this case, I don't think it matters a ton because they're not like Arizona. I think 1 through whatever you have 13 guys, 13 position players on that roster right now. I don't think, the guys that would concern me being out would be like a Kettle Marte. Not seeing Jock in there against a right-handed pitcher would be, I would stay far away from that because he's on fire against right-handed pitching. But yeah, those two, Perdomo was out for a considerable amount of time, so he's really still trying to kind of fit back into the team. I wouldn't be that concerned if either of those are in the lineup, and I don't think either move the needle that much. So, irrelevant to me if either of those two play today.
All right, Adam, Trigger, you have some chalk in this next game. Mariners are playing the lowly Marlins. Talk to me about why you think they're worth laying minus 170.
Yeah, that's creeping up there. I think, although I do think it continues to probably climb. So I don't think minus 170 is horrible if you like this game. Really a fade of the Marlins being one of the worst teams in baseball. And I'll talk about, some of their metrics in a second. And then Sean Anderson, a guy that spent half the season in Korea last year, the other half in AAA with the Phillies, and then, kind of started strong in AAA this year. But I don't think his stuff really translates to the big league level. I think we've seen a couple of instances at this point. So it does feel like a spot to me where the Mariners, maybe get right after losing 3 straight. They've been scuffling on this road trip. They lost 2 of 3 in Cleveland. They come out and get walked off last night for a 3rd straight loss. But this Mariners team with their pitching, their pitching is as good as you're going to find in big league baseball. They have elite starting pitching. They have elite pitching depth. If they can muster up some offense, this is a team that I think could be a big time sleeper in the league this year in terms of making a deep run and being there, in an ALDS or ALCS series because their pitching is that good. So I think the Mariners, just based on how elite their pitching is, they're going to have success this year, and they're probably going to have some success in this series against a Marlins offense that's probably, there's some bad lineups in this league. We could, split hairs here, but if the Marlins, without a doubt, are like a bottom 3 or 4 offense in the league right now. And in June, they've actually been the worst by a handful of metrics. Their 48 runs scored in this month so far, Kelly, is by far the worst. in Major League Baseball. And, you could make the point that the Mariners aren't very good offensively either right now. They have the lowest team batting average in April, but this is always a Mariners team. Just the makeup of this team, they've always kind of got a lower batting average, rely on pitching, rely on slugging. So I'm less concerned about that than I am the Marlins just straight up not scoring runs. We talked about juiced up, VIG minus 170. Logan Gilbert is an elite starting pitcher right now. There's not many instances where you're going to get Logan Gilbert at what I consider to be a little bit of a watered down price. I make him more like minus 200 here because, again, he's up against one of the worst offenses, and he is as good of a starter as you're going to find in the league at this point. A sub-1 whip, almost unheard of at this point in the season for a starting pitcher that's made all of his starts. ERA's below 3. Those are elite numbers. Comes off of 8 innings of shutout ball against the Rangers. He's looked the part. He's a guy that I've talked about, for years now. Since being called up a few years ago, I always thought he could be a front end ace, Cy Young caliber pitcher, and he's done nothing but trend toward that, throughout his career. And it looks like this could be, kind of the big time breakout career year for him if he's going to maintain this pace that he's currently on. So, without a doubt, you're getting the better starter. On the other side, I already mentioned Anderson. He's a guy, he didn't really have success in Korea. He was out after half of a season with the Kia Tigers. He's been good at the AAA level, like surprisingly good. Even earlier this year, 2.51 ERA, 1.08 WHIP, split time between Round Rock and Jacksonville. He was recently traded to the Marlins organization. But if you go look at any time he's been called up from 2021 until now, he's had zero success at the major league level. Was roughed up in a relief outing for the Rangers earlier this year. And then in his first start with the Marlins, just obliterated by the Nationals. So if the Mariners can I don't know if he'll get crushed and be out by the second inning here, but if the Mariners can get any offense going in this game against a guy that's really a AAA pitcher at best, in my opinion, they should be able to find a way to snap this losing streak. So yeah, it was a little juiced up, but minus 170 with the Mariners. If you can find maybe we'll be able to find something to pair it with. Maybe just throw it in with the Dodgers tonight, who are minus 380, and they're probably going to win.
No,
I know
no.
I know it's gross.
How about this? How about Abby Jackson had a question about the total. Are the Mariners correlated to the total in any way that would make a little bit more sense? 7.5 currently on the WagerTalk odd screen.
I mean, yes. The whole handicap and the whole breakdown suggests the under is probably the play.
That's what
but
I was thinking.
Here's two problems with that. One, 7.5 leaves you very little room for error. And you've got you've got a Mariners team that's probably due for a little bit of a breakout. And if that happens against Sean Anderson, we've seen he's more than capable of giving up 6 or 7 on his own, right? Like he got absolutely bombed by a Nationals offense that's pretty average last time out. So I would not want any piece of that total at 7.5. I think that's probably a pretty good number. And the only reason I say the Dodgers, they come off a loss last night. They're probably going to win. Like the Angels are just a bad baseball team. So, and it's a 10 o'clock game. This game will be long done before that. So, I mean, it gives you some options there. If you want to try to middle, or if you want to whatever, hedge off a piece of the Dodgers part. But again, I would just, me personally, Kelly, I would just lay the minus 170, play a little bit smaller, keep your risk amount in line. That way, if the Mariners
would you do the Dave Koken method where you do half on the minus 170, half on the minus 1.5?
That's a great, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I should have thought to bring that up. Yes, I would do that. And I would do that here, especially because you're getting the road team. So, I'm far more likely to lay -1 when I've got the road team. For what I was talking about in my Diamondbacks breakdown, I like to get 9 at bats to get it done, right? Like I don't want to go lay -1.5 with a home team, knowing that if I get to the 9th inning with a 1-run lead, game's probably over, right? Like I'm not going to get my final at bat. With a visitor, the -1 makes a lot more sense. You have a chance, and then of course, Cal, as you know, extra innings are a complete shit show now in Major League Baseball. So you get to the 10th inning. Let's say you're tied. I mean, the run per inning average in Major League Baseball is right around 1. In extra innings, it goes to like 3 because of the ghost runner on second. So anytime you can get a -1.5 with the visitors or a -1 with the visitors, you have way more outs than like with the home team. So yeah, I don't hate that splitting it, run line, money line, going with a -1 here on the Mariners.
Yeah, I had a little baseball rant that got clipped from Kelly and Murray last week, and I didn't even include the monstrosity that is extra innings. It is
It's
horrible. It's horrible.
Well,
It is not fun at all.
Kelly, I'm sure you will remember, like, go back 10 years and you could make a killing, just betting unders in Major League Baseball, like full game unders. If you kind of picked your spots and played under regularly in full in MLB, you did well, usually, right? And especially during the era that the ball was juiced up and a lot of balls were flying out of the park, a lot of the totals were inflated. But you can get to extra innings in a 2-2 game and you could be screwed with like an under 8.5. That's how bad it is. I mean, that's, you have a team that puts up 2, other team puts up 2, all of a sudden it's 4-4, you've lost the game. It's pretty much made it impossible to bet full game unders at this point. And it's sad for, if you're a sharp or better that used to profit on that, kind of sucks.
All right, we've got about 12 minutes left. If you guys have a question for Trig, drop it in the chat. Trig, Daryl Turner wants to know if anybody likes the Mets. But first, you mentioned no plays up at WagerTalk.com. Do you have some plays that you're anticipating to make your card for today?
Yeah, like I said, Saturday is strange with lineups and guys getting days off and rotating the lineup to the point where I might have a play in mind and then I may not do it because I see someone sitting or something like that. So, Kelly, we were on last week, I think about 20 minutes after the show, I put up the Rockies, ended up winning. It's probably the strategy I'll go with today. I don't want to force anything. I've been running great. Major League Baseball, I believe now 13-2, my last 15 plays, 21-4, my last 25 baseball plays overall. What you can do, though, we have great specials, and this applies to all handicappers, not just me. Rest of June, get July free. That's all access. That includes anything else I would play outside of Major League Baseball. And I've got an MLB special up that takes you all the way to the end of the year for like $2 a day. Not sure who priced that one out. It was, but it's as probably as inexpensive as you're going to be able to find for Major League Baseball the rest of the season. And that's only for me. That's on my page. I don't know how long they're going to run it, but that's probably the best value we've got going right now for baseball. So, and then you get them all. You get them as soon as I put them up. You get the email, and that's usually how I play Saturdays. I wait, check lineups, and try to find a spot to jump in like I did last week, which worked out with the Rockies. So it's what I'm looking at for today.
All right, the Mets are still in Chicago to face the Cubs. Game 2 of this series. As I mentioned, Turner wants to know whether or not anybody likes the Mets today.
The Cubs, like the bane of my existence at this point, Cal. Like this was the team I came into this year and I said, I'm going to take a stand on them with basically ladder betting them in the National League to win their division, to win the NL, to win the World Series, all at really nice prices, like 35-1 to win the World Series. I think 17 or 18 to 1 to win the NL. I really thought this team had a ton of upside this year, and they just haven't been able to turn the corner yet. I did, this one came up on I think both first pitch shows or a couple of the shows I was on earlier this week. I had a 4% play on the Cubs. I think it was maybe Wednesday night or Tuesday night in the series with the Giants. They won that game. They took 2 of 3 in that series. I kind of went into the weekend thinking they would take 2 of 3 again from the Mets, being at home, having some momentum of back-to-back wins to close out that series with the Giants. And what do, Cal? They have their ace on the mound and they get blown up 11-1 yesterday. Not even competitive. It was 6-1 by the end of the second inning. And it really kind of made me rethink things here. Now, I like the Cubs in this spot for everything. I like everything about it, but Jameson Taillon on the mound for Chicago. He's just not a guy that I've had a ton of he's like the one pitcher I haven't really wanted to back in that rotation this year. So if you throw him out, I would have been on the Cubs no-brainer play for me here coming off an 11-1 loss at home against a Mets team that, yes, they're hot, but I don't know that the Mets are definitely better than the Cubs. I think they've had a really nice run over the last week and a half, but I think these two teams are probably relatively even. I think even with Tyone, I think these two starters are kind of even. So if I had to play this game, Kelly, I see the market moving toward the Mets. Probably about a 20-cent move. You're looking at Mets minus 115, minus 120. Right now, Cubs plus 1.5 is down to minus 140. I think if you could find like Cubs plus 1.5, minus 135, minus 130, like just assuming that from now until first pitch at 2:00, the Mets continue to steam, I would play back at the market there, and I would take Cubs plus 1.5. And then, if you don't want to lay that juice, I would just take a shot with Cubs money line, because I don't understand the Mets steam here, anything other than the fact that people think Grimace is made them a better team, or the fact that they just lost 11-1 yesterday. But if you throw those two things out, which is, both small sample size stuff, I still think these are evenly matched teams, and I still lean toward the Cubs being, having the bigger upside. And of course they're at Wrigley. So I would take the Cubs here. I thought I just left her speechless.
Somehow I'm muted. I don't know how that happened. I didn't even touch the microphone. But no, I'm laughing about Grimace because we talked about it on Outkick the other day, and I said, don't you think you guys would want to save Grimace for I don't know, later on in the season, utilize your ace and save him? But they did not. And the biggest mush on Twitter, bet the Mets, and now Grimace is no more. And oh, by the way, the Mets are playing on the road, so Grimace is not throwing out the first pitch. That being said, I think it's pretty ridiculous that people believe in that kind of stuff. I got one more question here for Trig, and that our producer just loves throwing up Grimace, and it's regards to KBO. Indy Mofro wants to know, with all the doubleheaders tomorrow, is there an edge in any of the KBO games?
Yeah, there always is. That's the thing. And the tough part is, so there's always doubleheader edges when the KBO decides to do doubleheaders, which they're doing tomorrow. There's almost always going to be an edge. The tough part is going to be trying to determine who's pitching in game 2 of the respective games, and then actually finding places to get down on it. Because what'll happen oftentimes at most of these books is you'll get a game 1. So these are true doubleheaders. So it's almost like, game starts at 1 a.m. Eastern or whatever. It's like a 2:00 game out in Korea, and game ends, and within 30 minutes or so, the next one starts. So it's, some books will offer it. I think Bet365 is really good about offering the game 2s, but a lot of your local to offshore type books won't. I don't know, some of the legals don't always put game 2 lines up. So I tend to, it's not that I don't handicap or try to find it, but it's I'm not going to go through all of this crazy effort to try to handicap game 2s, find edges in game 2s, just to be basically closed out at every book. And doubleheaders in general, I think tend to be difficult to handicap. I've always kind of avoided them in Major League Baseball. I just think there's a game plan. There's certain people that might play game 1, might play game 2. Usually with MLB, I'll go in with a thought process in mind of, okay, I want to take a shot in game 1 here because I like how game 1 sets up. Or if this, and this happen, then maybe I'll fire game 2. Makes it really difficult to play as part of a service, right? At least in Major League Baseball, sometimes you get game 1 at 1:00. Game 2 is a totally different game at 7 p.m. But the true doubleheaders are tough to kind of advise on. And in this case, sometimes you don't even really know with Korea, you might see a lineup not posted until 3 or 3:30 a.m. for a 4 a.m. Eastern start. So yeah, to answer the question, there's definitely an edge. If you can dig up info on who those game 2 starters are going to be, and the books don't think that it's going to be one of the aces, and it is, you'll always find value. But I've just never had a ton of luck with the doubleheaders, so I typically stay away from them.
All right. His name is Adam Trigger. He goes by @TopFlightSI on his Twitter page. Adam, let everybody know what they can expect buying your second half of the baseball season package. If you've already started your college football work?
Yeah, so I've definitely started my college football work. Kelly, I'm taking, well, I guess it's a page out of your book and a little bit CT's, but I know you guys are immersed in college football, but for me, I'm sort of all in on the ACC this year, and I feel like there's so much going on with college football and so many teams, and then college basketball starts in November, and I'm trying to stay tuned in there. That I'm gonna like shrink college football down for myself this year and really focus on the ACC for a couple of reasons. One, I live in an ACC market. I get good Syracuse info. I'm 25 minutes from the Dome. I'll probably go to every home game this year. And two, a good friend of mine, Aaron Kidd's in another ACC market. He's probably at every Virginia game this year. So I feel like, I'm my info in the ACC is good. And if I can focus there, and then kind of play here and there, almost like what you guys do in the Big 12 to an extent, I think I'll probably have more success than I have the last couple of years trying to just figure out what's going on across 130 schools with kids transferring, transfer portal, kids getting paid, kids not getting paid enough. It's made college sports really difficult. And in college basketball, you only got to worry about 5 dudes on the floor at the same time, 10, 11, 12 guys on the roster. In college football, there's 80 guys on the roster, and it's really challenging. As far as baseball is concerned, I'm grinding it out every day. 13-2 my last 15 plays. We're finally really sort of getting some traction, after a little bit of a slow start in April and into May. So I'm very excited about that. And I don't stop with baseball. September's going to roll around. I don't take off. I know some guys do. That's not me. I'm going to grind this out right through the World Series. So you'll get everything I've got from now until that very last pitch at some point late October. And hopefully we keep rolling right through the end of the year.
Awesome stuff from Adam. Make sure you guys are giving him a follow at Top Flight SI on Twitter. Guys, I'm Kelly Stewart. Kelly in Vegas. We'll be back here next Saturday before I go to the Tampa Bay Rays Nationals games for a Viva Seltzer event. It's going to be great. Good luck, you 6 sons of bitches. Hit that thumbs up button and crush it this weekend. Shout out to our producer, Joe. I know his tweets and comments from anywhere. Again, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Hit that like, subscribe button. He's laughing in the background. We love you guys for hanging out with us each and every single Saturday. We'll see you next week.